So it's definitely a wet and cold one today. It's the start of November and we've had some rain, but everything's starting to now drop to the floor. The plots are covered in leaves, which I'll need to collect up for some leaf mold at some point. But there's plenty of jobs to do. I've got some new gloves because I left my ones outside and they're completely soggy. And when I went through the shed the other day, I had about, I don't know how many left gloves. Where are all the right gloves gone? So the plan today is to try and sort out the polytunnel. I want to put the floating shelf back in now, put all the bamboo canes up on the top, out of the way, ready for next year, and they can dry out and stay nice and safe there. They're boring jobs really. The garlic now is mainly in. I want to try and get the Lautrec in today as well, so that the garlic is, completely ticked off. But I'm looking around and thinking, where do I start? Where do I start? So far, all the new viewers that have joined recently, there's been a couple of comments asking, they're kind of, and I get this a lot, don't worry, which parts are yours? So this part here isn't mine. The fig and olive plot is. This part here is mine. So basically this plot with the polytunnel and this plot through the archway is mine. This plot here isn't mine. I know it sounds quite confusing. So basically I've got two plots adjacent to each other, the fig and olive plot and the new plot, which still hasn't got a name, but it'll come when it happens, I suppose. So yeah, some people have asked me about this plot here, have I got a second polytunnel that needs a new cover and whatnot, but no, that's not my plot. I've got two plots and they're close enough together that I feel I can just work on the one and not worry about the other. But they're not actually right next to each other, if that makes sense. I've probably confused you even more now, but yeah, so there and there. So this probably makes more sense. So this plot behind me, and then I literally just walk across in a diagonal, and then this plot is mine here. So hopefully that answers that question. Right, let's start the jobs. Right, let's put the floating shelf up. Now the reason I've got this floating shelf is because it stops rodents, mice, rats, jumping up off the staging in theory, and it worked last year perfectly, and you can actually raise it higher and lower. Let's get that up because I'm going to start sowing now in the winter, and I'll need that protection out of the way, especially things for like sweet peas and anything with seeds and things like that, because those blooming mice, honestly, well, they're looking for food, aren't they? So you can't blame them, but they become a pest. So the floating shelf is in, and it's a bit of a mess here. I've still got some more bamboo canes here, but I've put most of them up here now out of the way. And there's more bamboo canes this year than last year because I obviously bought a lot more. But the floating shelf is in, and now I can start using this to store things on and then sort out everything else then on the sides, because this polytunnel is a little bit of a mess right now. Well, a lot. And I'm going to hold back because I think it might rain later on. I mean, of course it will. So there's no point me doing this now while it's dry. So I'll keep these jobs in the polytunnel for rainy days, and that's kind of the plan. And the good thing about this floating shelf is that it's on chains. So you can obviously raise this. So when I get to like the start of spring, the floating shelf is up here. It'll also get a lot more light because it's obviously higher up in the tunnel. It's out of the way from me, and obviously it stops from mice from climbing up onto it as well. But at the moment, I've got it kind of at chest height because there's nothing on there, and I can always adjust it. It's quite easy to adjust. I've just got these like kind of little carabiners that you can unscrew, and yeah, just basically go up the chain maybe like a foot or so on each one of the chains, and yeah, it's adjustable. And I had a few people last year ask, you know, does it hold too much weight? Does it put a lot of strain on the polytunnel? No, it doesn't at all. You know, these polytunnels are all holding each other together, and it actually anchored it down, I think, a bit. But yeah, it worked a charm last year. And if anyone's seen my channel last year, then you know that both sides of the staging were absolutely crammed full. You know, there was 30 foot worth of staging and also another 10 foot on this floating shelf, so 40 foot worth of plants. But I've got a few ideas for next year for hardening off, and that's something that's on, you know, in my mind, because last year I was struggling to take things outside to harden off, and because there's no space out there really, because I keep saying I'm going to have an area for sitting down, an area for hardening off, and that's definitely in the plan for next year. So yeah, I need to have a real good think about the plot and think, does it all have to be growing area? Because you do need to keep some of your garden for composting, storing things, and hardening off plants. So I want to have some kind of shelving for out there. And also in a bit, I want to take you down to another plot, because I want to show you something on there that that's been donated to me. So I'm going to show you that, because I've got a plan for that, basically. Yeah, so yeah. And also I want to show you the he fell over. This is what's happening, you know, there's so many leaves now and you just got to be careful. It's a death trap. So the fig tree now has lost most of its leaves. I mean, they're hanging on by a thread. But if you can see all these figs now that are on here, a lot of these won't actually come to anything next year. So it is better to take off these medium-sized ones. And if you see, there's quite small ones here. Now they'll be fruit for next year. So all the larger ones, they tend to rot off anyway. And why would you want energy to go to these? You want them to go to these. And as always, something's been digging in the beds. I mean, look, this was all leveled over. And as you can see, a little hole has been dug here. So you'll notice that a lot in autumn and winter. And the asparagus now has all gone yellow, so this can be chopped down today, which is actually a positive thing, because it just means that this area now can be sorted out. I've left a few nasturtiums in because I cleared all this maybe last week, and there's a few plants in between, and I was pulling out a lot of them, but I didn't want to get out the remaining ones because they were all entwined in between all the ferns. So today now I can chop these to the ground, remove all the ferns, and then put a nice mulch of manure down on the beds, and then this job then should be done for winter. So the asparagus, I'll just chop maybe 6 inches from the floor. Now a lot of people cut them right to the ground. Now I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to see where the crowns are that established this year. So I'll cut them to 6 inches now, mulch it, and then before the start of spring then, all those extra parts then of the crown I'll chop back down, and then the new asparagus will come up then in early spring. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And it is best to get these out because you don't want to leave them in for winter. The wind will keep rocking them back and forth, and it could damage the crown underneath. So yeah, it's best to just prune them out. And if you had problems with asparagus beetle, remove these because they could have laid eggs on them. But I've never had problems with asparagus beetle myself, he says, but I know some people do. So you can either mulch the beds with them if you want to, but I just tend to remove them and put some nice manure down, and then it's good to go for next year. So if you are thinking about doing asparagus, now's the time to have a look at some of the varieties you can get. I've got like an early, mid and late asparagus in this bed. So I've got asparagus through the season rather than just one big glut. And you can buy a pack. I think this was a pack of maybe 30. And this year was the first year that I had a good crop of asparagus, because it's a good investment, but you have got to wait for it. So don't put it off. If you want it, put it in, because I did that for a while. I kept thinking, oh, I'll do it next year, I'll do it next year. And I think I was about 2 years in before I decided. And I thought, that's 2 years I could have had the crowns in, maturing. And you want to get this in really. I try and get 2 or 3 year old crowns and then harvest maybe a year or two later. But I had these in and they were 2 year old crowns, and I had to wait 2 whole years just for them to establish a bit. And then from this year on now, it's going to be an absolute glorious bed to have. So the asparagus now is all cut down and cleared, and I put some nice manure on the top just to wash down now into the crowns for winter. Now this isn't fresh manure, this is about 2 year old, so you don't want to be putting fresh on, it'll burn it all. So you don't want to burn the crowns. Right, now you've got to be careful now as well when you're putting this on, that you don't rake and then you hit the crowns. It's quite important to protect those. Oh. There we go. Another job done. Whew, it's getting quite warm now in that jumper and coat, so it's all off for now. I mean, people will be saying, why are you in a t-shirt? But honestly, it gets so warm when you're doing all these little jobs. Anyway, I have been looking at moving the pond as well. Mainly because it gets a lot of shade in that area. I've talked about it before. Now I don't want to do it in late winter because obviously the ground will be so hard that it'll just be impossible to dig the hole. But I don't want to do it yet because there still is some plants in the area that I want to put the pond that haven't gone dormant yet, and then I can dig them up and move them around. Now the reason I'm doing this is because the pond is, in theory, is in a lovely place. It's quite quiet there, less traffic, but it doesn't get any sun at all. So the problem is the pond is not getting warm in the spring and the summer, encouraging in more wildlife, and it's just basically underneath a tree and it's just dropping all the leaves in, and every year all I'm doing is just taking the leaves out. And yeah, I'd like to have some things in like lilies and seeing newts and tadpoles, because obviously they're breeding in there because it's warmer rather than it just being a cold pond in the dark. And yeah, that's kind of the plan. The lilies as well don't grow really well in the shade, so the plan is to move the pond and use all the water, use all the everything that's in there, the wildlife and whatnot will be moved over. So I'll build the other pond and then dismantle the other one, rather than, you know, carting it all over in little buckets. I'll do it all in one go, so there's less stress on the pond and everything in it basically. But I want frogs, I want newts, and I want lilies, so that's the plan. And speaking of ponds, I took a trip over with Linda from the Feel Good Garden over to see Tony. We went for some lunch first of all in the garden centre, had a little look around, and there isn't much going on now apart from Christmas decorations, and there's the odd plants and stuff, you know, the Christmas plants, but it's all starting to dip down now, and it won't be long, it'll start being February before we know it, and the garden centres will start filling up again. But we took a trip over to Tony's, had a look at his new pond as well, which looks absolutely beautiful, and I took some inspiration from that, and it's exactly how I want mine, to be honest. Quite natural looking, you know, and not so square. It's got a natural shape to it. But yeah, it looked absolutely good. We had a good day over. Linda had a little look around Tony's as well. And yeah, so well, I'm looking around now thinking, what do I do now? What do I do? Look at this. I've covered all this over and nasturtiums are still finding a way of seeding and coming up through here. I haven't sown any nasturtiums for 2 years and I regret doing the amount I did. Different colours, and they just all kept seeding in the bed, so I'm trying to take a lot of it out before it goes to flower, which I did this year, and all the foliage you've seen me pulling out the last 2 weeks, that was all the second growth from all the seeds that dropped in summer. So I kind of wanted that to happen. I wanted us to try and knock off a lot of the nasturtiums before they go to flower and then create more seed. They're lovely in the garden, they really are, but they're a nightmare when they set in because they're there forever. And the water's been turned off now at the allotment site. The start of November is normally the time when all the taps are turned off and they're bled. So there's no water left in the lines because they're so close to the surface. They're turned off so they don't freeze and break over winter, and then they have to be repaired in spring. So the water's switched off now. It'll be put back on the start of April. So November, December, January, February, March, April. So we've got about 5 months before we have any more water on the plots. So if you haven't already, connect some gutter to your polytunnel, to your greenhouse, to your shed, put a barrel there, collect the water through winter so that you've got it in early spring, because if I'm not having any water on the allotment site until April the 1st, how do I water all those seedlings from January, February, March, you know? Those 3 critical months really are starting the onions from seed, and then all the brassicas and everything else that I start sowing in February and March, they'll need watering. So get yourself a barrel, connect it to there now and collect water through winter so that you've got it ready for spring. It's no good then stressing about it in spring. Do them jobs now. I mean, if you haven't got an allotment and they don't turn the water off, then you're okay, I suppose. But for us plotters that they do that to, get a barrel. Now I will mulch this again in about a month or 2's time with some farmyard manure bought in, and I'll give it a good layer on top of here now. But for now, this is just wash in, and then I'll put the other mulch on top, a good thickness, and that'll be quite sterile then, so there'll be no weed seeds coming through. But this might have a few in there, hopefully not, but it will wash in now over the next month or so. So hopefully it'll do its thing. So Matthew, one of the members, hi Matthew, and also a friend of mine, donated some pumpkins that they had left over from Halloween, the children had carved. And I thought, what better place to take them rather than them just being wasted, is taking them down to the old grapevine plot and giving them to the chickens there. And they'll enjoy those pumpkins, you know, through the cold months. And yes, if you've got any pumpkins or whatever, and you know plot holders that have chickens, ask them, do they want their squashes? You know, do they want that extra big marrow, the courgette that you didn't want? Ask them, because I'm sure those chickens will definitely appreciate them. So we've got quite a few in here, a few carved. I'm going to take these down and then they can have a little snack. I can see Lisa started digging a hole for her partner, or a trenching, who knows, probably a trenching, we hope. Everyone's starting to strap down their polytunnels now so that they're secure for winter. There she is, the grapevine plot. I don't know why I call it the grapevine plot, because obviously not called that anymore since someone else has got it, but to me it's still the grapevine plot. Hello girls. I've got a present for you. There you go. What have I got for you here? So this plot is actually going up soon for a new plot holder, and there's a bit of work to do on it. As you can see, it's been left for a few months, but it'll soon be pruned back and I'll show you in spring. I'm sure a new plot holder will love this plot with the views, and they'll turn this into the plot of their dreams, I'm sure. There we are, back to the plot. Now, since I've had a good clear up of the sprouts, there are still a few that don't look the best, but they're looking all right. There's not as much white fly now, and now I've had a good clear out, we might get sprouts for Christmas. So 2 years ago, a plot holder, I was walking past and they offered me one of these red apples, and they're the tickle pink. And basically, in a nutshell, I bought a tree then. I've grown it on for 2 years and they've left. So they've offered me the tree on that plot, and I've said yes, because I think I might do like an espalier with it, trim it right back, and then, you know, use that tree then up against the border or up against the fence and grow all the apples quite flat in an espalier style rather than a big massive bushy tree. So it's kind of the plan. Okay, scrap that. There's a couple of plot holders right around there and they're doing some gardening and digging, and I don't want to disturb them and start trying to film as well in front of them, so we'll come back, because at the end of the day it's their allotment too, you know. Because even though I don't mind filming, and I'm sure they won't mind, but who knows, I don't like them to think that, you know, they come here to garden and relax and it's some kind of film set, and we're always filming and stuff and always, you know, around. So I try and be respectful to other plot holders as well, and just, you know, do it when it's the best time, when it's a bit quieter. But we'll pop that later. Or if I don't get to show it, I'll pop a picture on the screen now of the actual apples and inside, because I'll pop down and take a photograph. But hopefully we can go down in this video and I can show you the tree that I'm going to dig up in winter when it becomes dormant. The plot's now going to be empty for a bit, and then I'll dig it up. I'll bring it up to the new plot and, you know, start pruning it back, and then yes, hopefully we'll have like some nice espalier trees. And I've also got a few other plans as well on that plot as well, to try and maximize the space and grow as much fruit that I can. So this still needs to be cleared, and I mean, I'm really trying to convince myself to lift all this, and I mean, it's rained for days and days, and I know if I pick all this up I'm going to be absolutely drenched and muddy, but I'm trying to convince myself to do it. And in this bed already, as you can see, the weed seeds are starting to come already, so keep on top of it at this time of year, otherwise this will be covered again. But you want to start making sure that the bed's nice and covered before the shoots of the garlic come out, and after that it's a nightmare. You've got to do it all by hand. So I'll give this a quick hoe over as well, just to make sure we knock them back a little bit. Now this area, I am going to put some membrane down, because we've got some like that couch grass stuff coming down, and hopefully that'll knock it back enough to kill it off. But I don't want to do it down this edge here. I want to put some nice bark down this, a foot strip all the way down here, because there is all daffodils in there. But this area, it's just becoming a nightmare. Any updates on the green manures? No. And no. Actually, we do. We have life. So the field beans are starting to pop up. So if you ever take a little look in your garden, sometimes you just need to get down. So yeah, see, you can see all the field beans now starting to germinate. So that's good news. Now Tony at Simplified Garden, he did all white mustards this year, and he did them a little bit earlier than me, so lesson learned for next year. And they are looking absolutely great now, and he said to me that he'll have the winter then kill them off, and then he'll give it a good top dressing then of manure or good compost on the top of that. So yeah, maybe I'll try white mustard next year, but I'm happy with the green manure over on this bed. That's looking great, but these ones, maybe I should have done them a little bit earlier. We'll see. And last week I also cleared off all the Blauhilde vines off this netting. It's a bit of a pain to do, I must admit, but it's such a handy structure, and I brought it in now so that the wind don't damage it, and the rain obviously would rust it if it was outside. So I'll bring it in here. It is a bit in the way, but I'm thinking maybe I'll move it further at the back, or even dismantle it fully just for autumn and winter, and then in spring then I can put it back up. But ideally I'd like to keep it in one piece rather than taking it apart. It's another job for spring, but yeah, it's starting to take shape now. I'm holding back on these polytunnel jobs just because one day I might have to come over and there'll be nothing to do outside due to the rain, and luckily then I'll have plenty to do in here. And another job that I can start doing now is all the runner beans that I picked off have all now fully dried, and if you rattle them, the beans are now ready to be taken out of here, and I normally put them on some paper at home, let them dry out again then for another week or so, and then I'll store them in a jar ready for spring for planting. So I've got Polestar, I've also got the Tsar, and also Firestorm, and also the Blauhilde, so I've saved all of them for next year. So yeah, these are another job when you're sat indoors watching the TV and you just pod all your beans. Why do we do it to ourselves, this gardening malarkey, honestly? It's always a job to do. Now, another little tip for planting garlic as well is that don't get too excited and plant every single clove out in the garden. So I've kept some elephant garlic back and also some of the other garlic, and I'll put them in modules now this week, and I'll grow them on in the polytunnel. And then if I have any then that doesn't grow outside, you know, I miss one or it just rots off, you've got that extra garlic then in modules that you can fill up in the gaps. So yeah, make sure that you use all that space. Right, let's try again. I mean, if he's down here now, he's going to think I'm a stalker or something, because this will be the third time that I've popped down and he's seen me walking towards him and then making an excuse and popping back. God, honestly, the things I do for you, look, honestly, make me look like a blooming stalker now. Just going past Linda's plot. Look at this, look at this. To get into the bloody thing. Look at all that in there. She's prepared, and she's also got the floating shelf back up. I need to pop in there actually, because there's a cutting in there for me, but I'll do that another day. But yeah, look how tidy that polytunnel is. So these are the trees. So I'm thinking of cutting this one down, trimming it, and then espaliering the tree. But there's also a second one here on the plot. And let me show you inside these apples. And as you can see, honestly, there is hundreds of apples here now. But inside these beautiful apples, let me show you. Look at this. I mean, look. It's rotted. Let me find you one that's not rotted, and I can show you how good it is. Look how beautiful this is. It's rotted inside. Oh God. Look how beautiful this is. I mean, look how red that is inside there. It's absolutely stunning, but they're obviously going over now because it's getting cold and they're freezing. And I mean, it's such a waste. Look how many apples are on the floor. I mean, look how many pounds worth of apples are on the floor there and under here and on the tree. You know, it's such a shame. And these apples are absolutely crisp and sweet. They're absolutely stunning. So I'm thinking of digging up one of the trees when it becomes dormant, giving it a good prune back. And yeah, it might take another year then for me to get a good harvest, but these apples are absolutely stunning. And sadly, that's actually part of allotment life. You know, you'll make friends on the allotment, and then sometimes they'll leave, or they'll come for a couple of weeks or months and try in spring. And for some people, it's harder than they think. And that's definitely true. You know, people think that it's going to be you know, how they portray it sometimes on like social media of, oh, we'll just have some freshly dug beds and we'll put some nice seeds in, and then we'll get some nice cabbages at the end with no marks on them, no bugs, no holes, no pests digging them up. You know, if only it was that easy. It's not. So if you are thinking about taking on an allotment, think very hard whether or not you've got the time, because sometimes it can feel like a full-time job, you know, and sometimes it is a full-time job. You can be over here sometimes more in the spring and summer than you would be in your normal employment. It can actually eat away at your time, but if you love it and there's a passion for it, it's worth every single minute. Do you know, it's such a muggy day. There's just so much to do, but the weather is telling me just to give up, you know. I'm just not feeling it lately, and I know that is mainly down to the weather, because I don't mind a bit of rain, but I'm just not feeling it. And yeah, do you get like that? Do you lose your gardening mojo in winter? Just feel like packing up for the day, and I've only been here an hour or so, but who knows. I think I'll just plod on for a bit, and then I'll just head home and come back on a better day. I'm Danny, and this is Grow Up.